Senator Craigo,
Here.
Senator Crum,
Present.
Senator Hicks,
Excused.
Senator Kolb,
Present.
Chairman Olson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. So we are considering one bill today. That's House Bill 10. Just for the public's edification, we have members who have other committees at this time. This is not our regular meeting time. We normally meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So members may be coming and going. You'll see that with a couple of members. Just so you're aware of what we're doing, why people are coming in and out of the committee meeting. Just they have other committees that they have to attend to as well. I need to kind of figure out the flow of how we're going to address this bill on public comment. If you know that you're going to make public comment, can you raise your hand? Okay. And then I've got about a dozen online as well who want to make public comment. So it's a reason why we only have one bill today, because I anticipated there would be quite a bit of comment, but I will still have to manage that. After we get through the presentation of the bill and we get to that section of public comment, I'll kind of set the rules at that point in time of how much time we're going to allow for people to speak on the bill. They'll just depend on how much time we have. So just be aware that we'll manage that as it comes. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and last thing I wanted to say is we have to obviously reserve enough time for us to do whatever it is that we're going to do with the bill, if we're going to take it up or make amendments to it or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. If it seems like we're ending early, we're not. We just have to have time to work the bill. So with that, committee, House Bill 10. This is sexually explicit materials in libraries requirements. This bill is a product of our interim, so we're all very familiar with this bill. I'm not going to go through line by line through this bill. Instead, what I'll cover for the public record, I guess, are the changes, so that we're all aware of what the changes are that from the House version to what we have in front of us now. The First Amendment takes place on page 4 under Romanet 2 on line 7, page 4, added the word primarily so that this section reads that sexually explicit materials are cataloged, located, and stored in a section of the library devoted primarily to, or that primarily provides materials aimed toward persons age 18 and older. The original version of the bill only used primarily once. Now we are belt and suspendering it with 2 primarilies. So that is the First Amendment. And I believe there's only one other amendment, and that's on page 7, subsection B, line 5, adds younger than age 18. So that this subsection would read, each school district and each employee and contractor of the school district shall ensure that no sexually explicit materials are accessible by any student younger than age 18 in any library of the school. And I believe that's it. You have the amendments there. Was there something else I missed, Senator Kolb, or?
I don't see it.
Is that it? Okay, and then just high overview of the bill. Oh, on page 2, here's the other primarily. So line 11, we do the same thing here where we add a second primarily so that the Romanet little I reads, children's section means any portion of a library devoted primarily to or that primarily provides materials aimed toward persons younger than age 18. So applies to the school libraries and the public libraries. This bill creates a new section of law, 1-39-125, liability for sexually explicit materials in children's sections of libraries. And 18-7-107, sexually explicit materials available to children, requirements, penalties, and a cause of action. 21-3-138, sexually explicit materials in school libraries, penalties, and a cause of action. And then section 2, definitions, let's see, 1-39-103. And then lastly, 1-39-104, granting immunity from tort liability, liability on contracts exceptions. And then section 3, this act is effective immediately on July 1st, 2026. And that's the bill. Committee, do you have any questions about the bill before we get into public comment? Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about why these primarily was put in there and what, I just have a question about.
Legally?
Legalese,
Legalese?
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
I know that Senator Crago, this was an amendment that you proposed during the interim. Would you like to address at least why I think the logic behind why you proposed it is probably sufficient?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So if you go to page 2, line 11, the word primarily, the second primarily was added, not the first. And the reason being was if you read that without the second primarily, the entire library would be considered the children's section. And so we were just trying to clear up that there's a quote unquote children's section and then the rest of the library or an adult portion of the library. And so we tried to do that in committee. I think the 3 of us actually tried to do that. A couple other people, it just failed on the final vote. And so anyways, I think it's just a clearing up that there is a children's section and then there's other parts of the library, because as written, the entire library would have been in the children's section, and the books we're talking about would not have been allowed anywhere in the library, much less the children's section.
Thank you.
Senator Kolb, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just so this in legal terms works the way it's worded.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Crago?
I don't know if it works, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was.
Well, thank you for the lawyerly answer.
You get what you pay for. All right. So, and then obviously the same logic applies to page 4 in the county libraries.
Yep.
Any other questions on the bill? Senator Colt, be good. All right. With that, let's go ahead and move into public comment. So are there any state agencies wishing to testify on this bill? No? How about associations? Actually, I'm sorry, the room is just really full, so it's hard for me to see who all's here. I need to go to Representative Lucas next. Are there any other representatives or senators hiding in the mass of people? No? Okay. Welcome, Representative Lucas, and if there's anything, we really didn't get down into the weeds on this bill, so if there's anything that you specifically want to address in the bill, absolutely feel free to do that. Otherwise, just let us know what you want us to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you once again on this topic. For the record, my name is Ann Lucas. I am the representative for Wyoming's House District 43. First, I want to begin by congratulating this committee on crafting a strong, careful, and definitive bill. House Bill 10 is not about banning books. It is about the proper placement and age-appropriate access of books. It recognizes something most Wyoming parents already understand. Adult sexual content belongs in adult sections, not in spaces designed for children. Wyoming parents have emailed me, called me, texted me. They catch me at Albertsons everywhere I go to talk about this issue. And I have had very few people actually speak to me against segregating adult sexual content from children. They support this bill, and they are insistent that our legislature enact a law that requires our government-owned libraries to protect our children from adult sexual themes and materials that are harmful to children. Some of the materials currently found in many youth or teen areas of public libraries, such as 2 books that I brought with me today, I consider them the most notorious. contain explicit sexual illustrations, graphic descriptions intended for mature audiences. If you haven't seen these books, I encourage you to, because it is a real eye-opener. People don't understand how bad this is until they actually look at it with their own eyes.
Representative Lucas,
Pardon me. sir.
the books are, what are the titles of the books?
Oh, I brought with me Genderqueer
Okay.
by Maya Kobabe and Let's Talk About It by Erica Moen.
And where did you acquire these books?
Well, these actually, I bought them with my own money because it's tiresome to keep tagging pages from the library, but
But you
both
initially checked them out from.
I did. I checked them out from our local library here. This one is now in the adult section at the Laramie County Public Library, but it is in the youth section in most other public libraries within Wyoming. And then this one is in the young adult but young adults are minors section. They're both very graphically illustrated and rather shocking to a lot of people. There are hundreds more books like this and worse. Some have more pictures, some have less. They're not age appropriate for minors. And just a reminder, there's no real term for young adult when we're talking about children. Legally, young adults are 18 years of age and over. So when we're talking young adult, we're talking children as young as 12 in our local library here. These books are available in just about every public library within Wyoming. I checked this morning and there's a few that don't have either of these books. Sublette County Library, for example, does not, but they're among the minority, let me tell you. Children exposed to explicit sexual material cannot unsee it, and they cannot unread it. Early sexual exposure is linked to increased anxiety, confusion, and boundary distortion. Developmental psychology consistently finds that premature exposure to sexualized material interferes with healthy emotional and cognitive development. I've had the opportunity to speak to several child psychologists in my adventure through this topic. There's also a desensitization effect, and we see that happening with young people who review pornography, for example. They become desensitized to adult sexual concepts. This also, though, can make children more vulnerable to grooming and exploitation. Neurologically, children's brains are still forming executive function and impulse control. Some medical experts say that young adult brains are not fully formed until they're 25 years old. And I don't know if you have children that get to be that age. Sometimes I question if that's so even. But adult content activates the arousal pathways prematurely in children before their brains are cognitively able to grasp what it is that they're looking at. Libraries already curate by age. We don't shelve R-rated DVDs in the children's section. So we're already accustomed to segregating adult concepts from children. Books with explicit sex should be treated the same way as an R-rated movie. This bill does not remove books from libraries. It simply ensures that adult sexual material is shelved for adult access and not for children's access. HB 10 protects minors, preserves access for adults, respects parents, and restores common sense. I urge your support on that. Just last comment about, I agree with your amendments. I support them. I think that they really do improve the bill. Makes me feel a little better, Senator, about your comment. But I would answer any questions you have for me, and otherwise I thank the committee for your indulgence.
And Representative Lucas, just so the public's aware, because we can talk about these amendments as we move along. It would be wonderful to get public comment on these, but the First Amendment that I'm aware of would allow county commissioners to opt out of the requirements of this bill if they so chose to.
I understand.
And-
I'm not crazy about it, sir, but I can live with that.
So that's good to hear. And then I don't, Senator Craig, what does your Second Amendment do?
Mr. Chairman, I most likely won't bring that one if my first amendment is successful, but it just,
Oh, let's not worry about it then.
Right.
now.
Yep.
Okay, so, yeah, on the county commissioners opting out, I think that is a very viable amendment to this legislation. So as you testify, if as a stakeholder or a member of the public, we would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on that amendment as well as the legislation as well.
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Just one last comment
Go
about
ahead.
that. Thank you very much. Although it isn't my choicest amendment in the world, I can live with this because we know then who is holding the strings on that restriction, and folks can vote accordingly. Thank you.
Agree. Thank you. Any questions for Representative Lucas? All right, thank you, Representative. Now I'll ask if there are any associations wishing to testify on this bill. Yeah, come forward, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Christine Brady. I serve as the president of the Wyoming Library Association. I want to jump in really quick on a couple things. First of all, I think we sit here a lot with each other and it's easy to have an idea about who each other is. And I don't know that I've ever formally introduced myself to you guys, aside from here I am as president. But
Yeah, you'd have to remind me, did you join us for the interim?
yes, I did.
Okay.
Yep. And I am a mother of 5. I have been a pastor's wife almost my entire adult life. And my faith and values that have guided me to make those choices to homeschool my kids are also the faith and values that I have applied in my time as a librarian. You just heard about genderqueer. I want to comment on just a couple things. Most libraries don't have it. 10 public libraries have it. We have 23 county systems. So less than half, and I think in that 8 county systems have it. So not every library has it. Most libraries have it in the adult section. When you go through this list, there may be a few extra that you see in there. Those are community colleges. We already know community colleges are gearing their libraries towards 18 and older. So they are have not been included in this bill. So
Sorry, let's break that down. So
Okay.
you said at first that there were 10 libraries,
10
10
libraries,
public
10
libraries
public
in the
libraries.
state of Wyoming have this book.
Yes.
In what section of their,
Let me give you a quick count.
if you know?
Yeah, I can pull it up right now. 1, 2, 3 are in YA
Okay,
and the rest are in adult.
okay.
In Laramie County, which it was brought up that was moved to the adult section, that was moved after the librarians there had taken time to review the book. And I will say, our system has worked with our challenge policies as people have brought books to us, and genderqueer is one of them that I'm going to readily admit, for me as a library director, wasn't on my radar. When it came up in Campbell County, it came on my radar and I looked.
And what are the, I'm sorry, what are the 10 libraries you referred to?
We have Albany County, Campbell County, Fremont County, Hot Springs. And that one, let's see, Laramie County, Lincoln County. And these are counties, these are in their branches. Sweetwater County. Sweetwater has 2, 1 and 2 branches, and Teton has 2
in
So
their
the-
branches.
in their branches.
And then in your testimony, you started to reference college.
So then there are
Libraries.
college libraries that have them. So they
Which-
also are in our system. So you can see those. Which colleges have them?
So no, I don't,
We
I-
don't need
it doesn't
colleges.
fall within the.
No,
No,
it
it's
doesn't
not
fall
fall
within the
within the bill.
I just want to make sure the public, they're tracking on what,
Yeah,
why we're talking about college
yeah.
libraries. We don't really need to.
We
touch-
don't need to
touch
talk
on
about
that.
colleges. The reason I brought that up is because when you do look at this list, and if you were to go down and count and you'd be like, oh, wow, there's a lot of these. Well, some of those copies
Right.
are in our community college libraries, and we share a system with them so we can see what they have.
Helpful. Thank you.
Yes. So moving on to WLA's stance on this,
Yes.
but do you have any more questions about genderqueer at this moment?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. We still stand in firm opposition to this bill. Our stance is simple. Wyoming libraries are for everyone. Our professionals work diligently to curate age-appropriate collections that meet the needs of every citizen, treating each patron with respect. From our most populated hubs to our frontier locations, libraries are essential to building literacy in our children and expanding it among our teens. We have a few concerns with this bill. One, HB 10 is a dismantling of local control. The government closest to the people governs best. We hear that a lot. That's a Wyoming value. That is a part of the Republican platform. This bill strips authority from our local boards and places it in the hands of state. HB 10 is an erosion of parental rights. While framed as a parental rights measure, this bill selectively supports the rights of one group of parents while actively stripping away the rights of others to decide what's appropriate for their own children. HB 10 is censorship through relocation. Relocation is a form of censorship. Intentionally moving materials to restrict access based on content is an infringement on the freedom to access information. Furthermore, this bill creates an unfunded mandate, requiring staff to spend an undetermined amount of hours auditing collections. This will be time and taxpayer money that is diverted from community service. HB 10 presents a legal and constitutional risk, and this may be one of our bigger things. This bill creates a litigation trap. In other states, similar legislation has triggered First Amendment lawsuits against libraries and the state. By opening the door to both civil rights litigation and frivolous claims regarding materials, this bill puts Wyoming in a precarious and expensive legal position. Another state that used this exact definition has been in litigation since they passed this bill. HB 10 starts a slippery slope of viewpoint discrimination. Once we limit one viewpoint, others inevitably follow. We have seen in other states, again, that once legislation passes restricting access to books about certain topics, other restrictions on books and materials soon follow. Important books regarding race, titles like The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas or Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates have been caught in this net in other states, but despite having nothing to do with sexual content. This slippery slope is personal to me. My youngest sons are Black young men who deserve to see themselves in books as much as my white children do. They have an equal right to find the history of their people on the shelves of their public and school libraries. HB 10 is inconsistent with obscenity laws. Proponents use terms like obscene, prurient, or pornography, yet those words don't appear in the bill's text. Libraries already strictly follow all state and federal obscenity laws. HB 10 diminishes long-established trust. Instead of fostering a partnership between parents and educators, this legislation casts librarians and teachers as untrustworthy. Librarians are eager to collaborate with families to help them make the best choice for their specific needs. Our Constitution ensures that one family's values do not dictate those of another. With the right tools and expertise, librarians can help every family find resources that reflect their unique lived experiences and beliefs, and they remain committed to serving the diverse needs of their communities. Finally, HB 10 is going to be difficult logistically. In our state, we have a few rural libraries that are both public libraries and school libraries. Meeteetse is an example of such a library. Separating these collections is onerous, and the decision makers in those areas are already trying to figure out how they would comply with this legislation. In closing, I urge a no vote on this bill, but if that's not possible, we would appreciate the committee taking the time to amend the bill to solve some of these problems. Thank you, and I'm open to any further questions.
So Ms. Brady, to your last point and a point you raised early in your testimony about local control, I don't know, you probably haven't seen this amendment that we're talking about, but there
Right.
is an amendment that will allow the county commissioners of any county to
Mhm.
opt out of the requirements of this
Yeah.
legislation. In your mind, does that restore local control?
Yes,
Okay,
we would be for that amendment.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Brady? All right, thank you. Ma'am, you're next.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman Olson and members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Darcy Lip Acord. I am currently the Collection Development manager at Laramie County Library System here in Cheyenne. But prior to holding this position, I did serve as the deputy director at Albany County Library System, and most of my career as the youth services librarian in Campbell County Library System. I have worked in public libraries serving youth, teens, and families for 20 years and taught school for 10 years. Prior to that, I'm a past president of the Wyoming Library Association. I'm also the mom of 6 adult kids.
Sorry, maybe I missed it. What association are you?
The Wyoming
You're
Library.
representing the Wyoming Library Association.
Yes.
Okay.
Wyoming Library
Thank you.
Association.
Go ahead.
I'm also the mom of 6 adult kids and so far the grandma of 5 grandchildren. I am here to urge a no vote on HB 10, and I want to focus my testimony specifically on the definition of sexually explicit materials in this bill and how that definition will impact library materials that are available and accessible to youth, teens, and families. As anyone who's been a parent for some time knows, you just don't always know what's coming when you're raising children. In my own family, I have faced situations that I had no idea I was going to have to face. And thankfully, I've had access to books and information and resources that helped me to navigate those situations with my children and help them navigate. Books give us language for discussing uncomfortable topics with the people that we care about. One of the topics that tends to be most uncomfortable for a lot of us is sexual development, sexual health, and sexual education. Over the years, as a youth services librarian, I have helped pregnant moms who wanted biologically accurate books about how babies are made that they could read with their older children. I have helped single dads who are unsure about how to speak about menstruation with their young daughters, and particularly how to instruct them on using feminine hygiene products. I have helped teens who found themselves in coercive dating situations and weren't sure if that qualified as abuse. Under the definition of sexually explicit materials in HB 10, the books that I use to meet those information needs would be less accessible. If I worked in a school library, some of them simply would not be available because there would be no place to move those books. In a public library, while they might be relocated and not removed, they would be shelved alongside books that actually are written for adults about sexual health and sexual education. That situation would put patrons potentially selecting books that are not truly written for the developmental age that they are or that their child is. And that doesn't seem protective to me as a mom, as a grandma, as a librarian. I'll also remind you that legal precedent, as Christine mentioned, does establish that this kind of relocation or restriction is a violation of patrons' First Amendment rights. Library collections are professionally curated to ensure that no material meets any legal definition of obscenity or its counterpart, harmful to minors. Those standards both require that a material meets a 3-part test to qualify as unprotected speech under the First Amendment. In contrast, the definition of sexually explicit materials used in HB 10 broadens the definitions of obscenity and harmful to minors, and thus risks violating protected speech. You have in front of you a list that we have created from the Wyoming Library Association of books that would contain materials that fall under the definition of sexually explicit under HB 10 and would thus be removed or relocated from library shelves for the relevant age group. And we did break up that list by what might be sexually explicit from pre-K to approximately grade 3, books that might be intended to be read to a non-reader or an emerging reader, books for children from age approximately grade 3 to grade 6. It's hard to tell when puberty actually starts sometimes, and books for teens from grade 7 to grade 12. Please realize that that list is by no means exhaustive, but it should give you a fuller picture of the type of materials that might be excluded from teens or children's areas of the library due to the language in this bill. Some people have mentioned that they don't interpret the sexually explicit definition to include these materials. I have to object to that statement as a librarian. We cannot curate collections based on someone's interpretation, a subjective interpretation. We are compelled to follow law and policy under the guidance of our local governing boards. Based on the bill's definition, I believe most libraries will end up reshelving or removing the materials that we've listed in our handout. I respectfully ask that you vote no on HB 10. If that is not an option, I further then ask that you amend the sexually explicit materials definition to align with the already established legal standards of obscenity or harmful to minors. And with that, thank you for the time, and I will stand for any questions that you might have.
Committee, any questions? Yes, please, Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you explain your association with the American Library Association and just how your collection is developed and just how you go about with your collection? I mean, how does it start from, from the ALA, if that's where it comes from? I don't know.
That seems like two separate questions to me.
Ma'am.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh, I'm so
I
sorry.
don't know if you've testified in front of a committee, but once a senator is done asking a question, I will then call on you
Thank you.
and then you
Sorry.
direct your comments through the chair.
I appreciate
That's just
that.
the way to, we have to get that rule out there. We're gonna have a lot of testimony, so everyone needs to be aware of the proper
My
way to
apologies.
address the chair and the committee. Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, Chair. Thank you for the question. That does seem like two separate questions, and I'm going to take it in two parts. The American Library Association is a professional organization. The Wyoming Library Association is a chapter of that organization. It is used for professional development and networking opportunities. It is not a source of our collection development policies, however. The second part of the question on how collections are curated. Library boards or school library boards develop collection development policies which address the scope of a collection, the considerations under which materials are evaluated, the criteria for selection, other kinds of things typically, but those are kind of the basic things. And then selectors who work for the libraries are compelled to use professional journals to meet the criteria of the collection development policy and place materials appropriately. I also must mention cataloging standards, which are international standards. So a book would have certain cataloging standards that would help us place it where it is intended to go. It is a complex process, and I don't want to take too much of the committee's time, but I would say that the important piece of that is that those collection development policies are set by local boards that govern us. And then we do follow the criteria of those policies in placing materials in the collection. The second piece of that is the request for reconsideration policy, which would allow a patron to raise the question of whether a material is appropriately placed in the library. That sets in process a stricter scrutiny by which librarians are going to review that material and make sure that it does align with, as I said, the cataloging standards and the selection criteria that our policy dictates.
Follow up, Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What books have you rejected from the ALA? I mean, when you were dealing with books and you go through your procedures and policies, what books were rejected not to be appropriate? Do you have any you could give it as an example? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman Olson. Thank you, Senator Kolb, for the question. Again, rejected from the ALA, I'm thinking we might be miscommunicating a little bit. The ALA does not dictate collections. There are some award lists that they publish, but a local library has the choice of whether they would purchase that. Some of the reasons why we might reject a particular book might be, I'm trying to kind of really quickly remember selection criteria. It might be a book that is outdated. It might be a book that has misleading information or information that has been superseded by other research. It might be a book that simply, per our circulation data, doesn't align with what's popular or what's circulating in our local community. That's a really big consideration. It might be a book that it isn't well produced. It's not a reputable publisher, so it's not likely to hold up to library circulation. It is our job to use the money that's allocated to us as responsibly and sustainably as possible. So like when I was curating for kids, I wouldn't buy a pop-up book for circulation because it would maybe circulate 2 times and come back ripped and not circulatable. So those kinds of things are considerations. But those are some of the things that we have to take into account. Those various criteria, again, are established by local governing boards.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, just to follow up, let me try to do better on asking this question. Specifically, a specific book that deals with the topic that we're talking about, say sexually explicit material, something that you might consider inappropriate, whatever that may be. I don't know. Just a particular book that deals with this topic that this bill's trying to deal with. Do you have an example of a book that was not accepted? That's my question. If you don't, you don't. I'm just asking a broad question here about, because I don't know what you know. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ma'am.
Okay, thank you for the question. Thank you, Chairman Olson. I don't have something that's coming to mind that we have rejected. I do know that, as Christine already alluded to, sometimes we purchase books and then review them and move them per our criteria and cataloging standards.
Any additional questions, committee? All right,
Okay,
thank you both. Were there any other associations wishing to speak? Yes. Is it Miss Hackle? Oh, I was gonna say, why do I not have this on my list? Yeah, let's go ahead and let Clayton in. Clayton, welcome.
Good afternoon. Can you all see me and hear me okay?
I can see you and hear you. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time. It is good
Yes.
to see you, Mr. Olson. My name is Clayton Milinkovich. I am the Sublette County Attorney, and I am here on behalf of the County and Prosecuting Attorneys Association. I'm speaking on behalf of that organization. I will not be getting into questions of the policy, especially with regards to sexual explicit definitions, so on and so forth. I will touch on some problematic issues that the association sees with this legislation from the logistics perspective. And one of those logistics issues is the differing definitions within the statutes with regards to obscenity. There's already firmly established obscenity prohibitions in the statutes in Title VI, Article 4. So that's one piece. I wanted to work through this. I have a list here. Certainly would be open to questions at any point in time from the committee. Please just interrupt me if you have a question about something I'm going through. The association is opposed to this because it creates liability for our clients from 2 different perspectives: for litigation from residents and also litigation from publishers and authors. Problems with the legislation itself. I just mentioned the word resident of the county. What is that? What does that mean? I would ask the committee to think about what is the legislation trying to say. Sublette County, as many counties throughout the state, have folks that come and go, that spend short periods of time in the county, that have homes in the county, but are permanent residents elsewhere. What are we actually talking about? This is a question of standing when it comes to any type of litigation or any type of claim. The legislation also notes a section of the library. Is this is the intention of the legislation that these be physically cordoned off areas to where children cannot physically enter those spaces? Are we talking doors, infrastructure? What does that look like? Also, the legislation notes that a library must be able to accept challenges at any time, both, and it is contemplated, it appears that this could be done through electronic means, but also physical means. How does a library accept a challenge, a written challenge outside of business hours? What does that look like? And what does that look like for a 60-day requirement on the turnaround? The legislation also addresses attorney's fees. This is somewhat unique because this legislation actually requires a district court to award those attorney's fees from that shall perspective. Generally, attorney's fees are up to the discretion of the court, and I would ask the committee to consider, why is this legislation in this type of civil action different, and why we don't trust district court judges with their discretion in this regard. Also, it says any person prevailing. I would ask the committee, what if a county were to prevail in a civil action? Does that mean that the county can be awarded attorney's fees? And also, I would ask, and this leads me into my next section of potential issues with this legislation, what does it mean to prevail? In candor, this legislation, with the creation of litigation, walks, and quacks a lot like judicial review of an agency action, which is covered thoroughly in the Administrative Procedures Act. Generally, and for those who are unfamiliar, when an administrative agency, whether that be a county or other agency, makes a determination, that can be reviewed. What is being reviewed here? Is it that written determination, that 60-day turnaround written determination that a library system is making? And if that is the case, is this a factual determination as to whether or not the material is in fact explicit? And what is that standard of review? Is there a deference to the administrative agency? What is that standard review? Is it an abuse of discretion standard? And if so, what is that level of discretion? And just to look through this and make sure I'm understanding, if there is a written determination and it says that it is moved, does that mean it appears to say no civil action is allowed, whereas there's only a civil action allowed if it is not moved? And then the other question I would pose when it comes to appeal rights: does a county have the ability to appeal a decision, and at what level does that appeal right fall out? So all in all, this legislation has significant problems in the implementation and what you're expecting both judicial system and county attorneys' offices to be able to represent their clients effectively. It creates significant questions as to what that looks like. I would encourage, or the association encourages, a no on this for a variety of reasons. Some of those reasons I just brought up. And I would stand for any questions. And if not, I have nothing further.
Any questions for the County Prosecuting Attorneys Association? All right. Thank you, Clayton.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Are there any other associations online that I missed, Pierre? No? Okay. All right. We will move into public comment. So what I'm going to do for public comment is allot 20 minutes for and 20 minutes against the legislation. What I'm not going to do is track every individual person, because I need to be able to pay attention to the testimony and not a timer. So that's really going to be on you all. If somebody wants to talk for 20 minutes, then they have to answer to all the other people that wanted to testify behind them. That's their problem. So I'll just run a timer on it, and we'll start with any testimony in opposition to this legislation. and just come up and fill up the chairs. And we'll just cycle through hopefully get as many people as we can. Go ahead, ma'am.
Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lisa Heinert. I was educated K through 12 in Laramie County School District 2, where all 3 of my children are now enrolled, and graduated from LCCC here in Cheyenne. My family are frequent library users. Just a couple weeks ago, my 11-year-old and I hosted a library event to encourage parents and children to read together. I care deeply about what my children read. I pay attention, I am involved, and I believe it is my responsibility, not the state's, to guide those decisions. I listen carefully to both the House discussion and the examples brought up today. There are singular, shocking examples that are being raised. However, it's also been shown that if there are specific books in the wrong place, our libraries already have local selection and challenge policies to address that case, and I trust them to do so. Specific one-off extreme allegations should not drive statewide policy for every community in Wyoming. Additional national tracking shows that book removals have risen sharply in recent years, and independent analysis also indicates that legislation structured like this, with broad definitions and legal enforcement, often leads to defensive over-removal as institutions seek to avoid liability. That precedent concerns me. House Bill 10 broadens the definition of children's section and enforces compliance through penalties and lawsuits. That structure replaces local judgment and parental control with legal risk. Recently in North Dakota, a Republican governor vetoed a similar bill as overly broad and unnecessary. I asked the Senate to take that same careful look. Wyoming values limited government and local control. I value my opportunity as a parent to parent my children as I see fit. I respectfully ask you to vote no on House Bill 10.
Committee, any questions for Ms. Heiner? All right, thank you for your testimony. Ms. Burlingame, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Sarah Burlingame. I'm the Executive Director of Wyoming Equality, and we are unsurprisingly in opposition to this bill. So I know that this committee already knows that a challenge process exists, and I know that this committee already knows that it's rife with legal challenges in its implementation. We know that the First Amendment speaks to obscenity, and if the bringers were concerned with constitutionality, that they would use that same framing of obscenity rather than sexually explicit. And we know that the government closest to the people is best, and our county commissioners currently have the authority to appoint board members who promulgate rules. This is already happening. Further, we know that thanks to technology, the majority of our minors have been exposed to X-rated content on their phones and tablets, but they have not been exposed to science-based sexual health education. We had the last time this bill was in front of us, a woman from Campbell County who wanted to testify that until she read a book in the Campbell County Library as a youth, she did not understand that what was happening in her own home was abuse. She didn't understand that what her father was doing to her was abuse. Under this bill, as a little girl, she would not have access to that book. Because she had it, she was removed from the abuse. She went on to raise and homeschool her 4 children who use the library religiously. Not all of our kids, of course, are LGBTQ or even genderqueer, but some of them are. Even here in Wyoming, in the reddest state in America, some of those kids are born into our families and they deserve to be seen in our libraries. So why are we here? Because in our current state of moral panic, we've decided that banning books is an appropriate role for the state. And our position is that no amount of amendments solves the central problem. So we're opposed to House Bill 10. And defending freedom isn't always easy. When my organization joins coalitions with conservative religious groups and we publicly state that we defend their right to not sanctify same-sex marriages, we get a lot of pushback. But rather than fall back on the easy culture war talking points, we defend the First Amendment. Not tepidly, but with rigor. So that's what Wyoming Equality is asking of you today. We aren't asking if you support these books. We're asking if you support your librarians. We're asking if you support the full expanse of the First Amendment. We're asking for leadership and we're asking for rigor. We're asking you to dare to be unpopular with the book banners, but true to your faith in our Constitution. Please vote no against this bill.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Burlingame? All right, appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Go to my right.
Hello. My name's Dominic Syracuse. I am a business owner here in Cheyenne. I'm also a father and I am a youth pastor. And I would like to talk about why I oppose this bill. One, as a behavioral specialist, which is my profession. Two, as a father and resident in Wyoming. And three, as a Christian. Number one, I have been tasked as part of the governor's task force on mental health to go around the state and help youth in crisis, specifically those who have been sexually abused, either by their parents or in abusive relationships. In all of the cases that I've dealt with in minors throughout the state of Wyoming, and my definition of minor is, of course, under 18 years old. Many of them are experiencing teenage pregnancies. Many of them have been raped or sexually assaulted by family members. Many of them have been raped or sexually assaulted by peers. And I come in as a behavioral specialist to help them out. And oftentimes books are an incredible resource because I can't be with them all the time. So I will educate them on some of the ways to handle the trauma, but handing them a book that they can then use is very important for them to read and educate themselves on, as well as videos and other material that can help, say, a 13-year-old who has been removed from her home because she was routinely molested by her parent or caregiver. This bill would ban those in libraries, so they wouldn't make them accessible for those youth who are experiencing such traumas. And for that, as a behavioral specialist, I can't support this bill. Number two, as a father, I have 3 children here in Cheyenne, all boys between the age of 12 and 15. I hear every day the things they come home talking about, whether it's through friends at school or other things. They're talking about sex. They're talking about what many of us would be considered grotesque and obscene. And I find it extremely important that they have access to sexual education, specifically in regards to sexual health. Any of us who are parents know, unfortunately, we can't keep our kids in bubbles. And also, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to chain them to the radiator of my house and not let them out. So with that, I would much rather arm them with education and make sure they are educated in all of the ways that sex can be used, and sexual health can be something that they're aware of and prepared for. I want them to be educated on sexually transmitted diseases. I want them to be educated on abuse. I want them to be educated on consent. And I want that to start as early as possible. For me, in my home, I believe that's appropriate at 12 and 13 years old. This bill would ban any kind of literature that would help with that. Third, and most importantly, I know many people who are proponents of this bill are Christians like me. I am a proud Christian. My faith is very, very important to me. I run a Bible study with my children and their friends, and I'm also a worship leader. And I would like to point out a couple things why, as a Christian, I'm opposed to this bill. Most importantly, this book right here. I have the Bible in front of me, and the Bible, I don't know if any of you have actually read materials in the Bible, but Ezekiel 23:20 describes women's lust for, specifically a prostitute's lust for men. I'd like to read you the passage quickly. That is, she lusted over lovers with genitals as large as donkeys and semen like those of horses. So to relieve herself of the former days as a young girl in Egypt, she went into prostitution where men fondled her breasts out of joy. Based on that verse alone, the Bible would be banned for anybody under 18 years old based on this bill. That means that children would have no access to the Bible. Now, this is just one verse. That doesn't count the verses of David's children raping and hurting each other. It doesn't count the famous passage of Jesus where he says, "Let he without sin cast the first stone," when people take a woman who is guilty of having sex with someone who wasn't her husband and beating her in public. These are famous biblical stories. And these are things that, if children are interested in learning about the faith of Christianity, will read in the Bible. And this bill would make the Bible inaccessible to children under 18, which is why, as a Christian, I don't support this bill. Thanks.
Questions for Mr. Syracuse? All right, thank you. Mr. Powers, and if you plan on testifying, just come up and sit in the chair so we can keep it rolling. Welcome.
Chairman Olson, George Powers, I'm a retired attorney here in town. I raised 3 children who all graduated from Laramie County School District #1, and I am opposed to House Bill 10. I sent you all a rather extensive package yesterday, and relax, I'm not going to go over everything I raised in that, but there are a couple points that I want to, based on what we've heard here today, that I do want to address. We've heard one person testify that this bill is not about censorship. I dispute that. This bill is explicitly about censorship. School libraries, books that fall within the definition of sexually explicit in school libraries will be removed. That is censorship. There is no adult section in a school library. Therefore, to say that this bill does not involve censorship is a falsehood. Another problem with this bill is it does not recognize the difference between a 6-year-old and a 17-year-old. There are different levels of maturity, and they are vast. And 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds can handle things that 6-year-olds can't. In Laramie County School District #1, parents have recognized that, and I sent you some documents reflecting the choices that Laramie County School District #1 parents have made regarding open access within the school libraries. In the high school area, 75% of the parents in Laramie County School District #1 chose open access. This bill would deny those parents their right to select the appropriate materials in those school libraries for their children. Now, there's one other thing that's come up that I wasn't aware of, which is a suggestion that there's an amendment for allowing counties to opt out. If you're going to let counties commissioners opt out, I think you need to also expand that to include school boards and allow appropriate school boards, since they are the ones who control the school libraries. And so I'm not sure what this amendment says. We haven't seen it. But if that is an amendment that you're considering, it should be expanded to include school boards. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Committee, questions from Mr. Powers, Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good day to you, Mr. Powers. Thank you for coming in. I guess I heard you say that there's a place for age-appropriate materials. I guess, would you give me the context of that? Like, I mean, that's one of the questions here is that, are these materials really dictated by age appropriateness, to be in a certain area? So what's your thoughts on that? Maybe I heard you wrong, Mr. Powers, but please expand.
No, let me
Mr. Powers?
I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Chairman Olson. I'll respond, and thank you, Senator Kolb. Our librarians know that different age groups have different levels for which things may be appropriate. And we rely on our librarians to make that decision. To use Laramie County School District #1 as an example, there's been an effort made to identify books that are, quote, sexually explicit under this current school district policy. And a number of books have been identified. Those books are almost exclusively in the high school sections. With regard to the elementary schools, not one book has been identified as sexually explicit. So what do I read into that? I read into that our librarians are doing their job. I read into that our professional librarians can, and in fact have, made rational, proper decisions as to what is allowed to children of tender years below the age of 12. And I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, Mr. Powers, I think I agree with your statement that librarians are doing their jobs in a lot of locations. That's absolutely true across the state. And it's an ongoing job. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, I learned that in my son's junior high school, there was a book that a student checked out that had sexually explicit material in it. The student felt uncomfortable, took the book to the librarian. showed the librarian, and the librarian was surprised to find that book because she's been the librarian forever and knows that this book has been in the collection forever, but then removed the book from the collection. So it's definitely an ongoing process. And the way I see this legislation, I know you referenced that they're in a school, there's not sections, there's just a library. But I mean, at the very least, that's what this bill would call for the creation of. It says that materials must be cataloged, so they're not being banned, they're just being cataloged. Must be located and stored, again, not banned, just stored, in a section of the library devoted primarily to that primarily provides materials aimed towards persons age 18 and older. So the way that I read that legislation is, yes, high schools and junior highs would have to take an affirmative step because their library currently isn't designed for what this legislation contemplates. But all they would have to do is create a separate section. It doesn't, there's some questions about whether it has to have walls around it and so forth. I mean, legislation's not that prescriptive. It just says you have to have a section. So in my mind, it doesn't seem that complicated that they would just have to create a section and move these books into that section. Please go ahead,
Chairman
Mr.
Olson.
Powers.
The majority of students in the high school are under 18. And I don't understand the proposition that what are they going to do? Create a special room where if you can show your draft card, you can be admitted? That doesn't make sense. What this bill will do is it will remove books from the shelves in school libraries across the state.
And Mr. Powers, I'm sorry, I actually was reading the wrong section, but the section that is applicable to our conversation says that they must be sexually explicit materials are accessible by any student younger than 18 in the library of the school. So there's a catalog, it's just worded slightly different, but there's still a cataloging for what would be considered an adult book versus a children's book.
And if that book is, Chairman Olson,
Yes.
if that book is not removed, that school district will be sued.
Any other questions for Mr. Powers? Senator Hicks, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Powers, based on that last statement, my question would be is if it was identified as sexually inappropriate, why would they not remove it?
Mr. Powers.
Well, what are these, for one thing, the choice should rest with the parents. And in this case, in the practice at Laramie County School District number 1, the parents choose whether or not their children can have open access to the library materials. And it's not a question of, again, the board bill's definition is sexually explicit, but that isn't a definition based on obscenity, it isn't a definition based on pornography. It's a definition based on words, not content. And I disagree with that approach. And I'll let it go at that, Senator and Mr. Chairman.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, that's not an answer to the question I'd asked. So
Well, could I,
appreciate
maybe
the evasion, but that's not the question I asked.
I may have misunderstood the question. Could I ask the senator to rephrase the question or repeat it?
Senator Hicks, your question?
Mr. Chairman, the question is if there was sexually explicit material in a school library, why would that not be removed?
Mr. Powers.
Because the definition of sexually explicit in this case is so broad and based simply on words that it would sweep within it a number of works of literature. For example, one of the books that is frequently banned and frequently criticized as sexually explicit is a book by Toni Morrison, a Nobel Prize winner, The Bluest Eye. And in that book, there are sexual encounters, but it is a book of literature. And when those passages are read in context, they have value. They have value that our children should have access to. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Powers? All right. Thank you, Mr. Powers.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you're next. And just so the public is aware, we've got about 3 more minutes.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So you
Mr. Chair,
stand between everyone else who wants to testify. Just bear that in mind.
and I'm not known for my conciseness. I'll try. Mr. Chairman, Senators, my name is Lisa Scroggins. I'm the Director of the Natrona County Public Library. I am a wife, I am a mother, and I am a grandmother. And I would like to address what I see as a few problems with this bill. First, it contradicts the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that guarantees that access to materials. It will literally place government entities like public libraries and school libraries in the decision of having to decide which law they want to break as they perform their jobs. Proper placement of books was brought up earlier. Proper placement is placing them where the intended audience can access them without fear of stigma. So while the materials may still be available elsewhere in the library in the adult section, it does create a stigma. And that is one of the measures that, that applies when considering the First Amendment of the Constitution. Moving the items in the collection from the teen section, because that's really what we're talking about, teens or young adults, to the adult section creates a barrier of causing stigma to the teens who wish to peruse, use, or check out the items intended for their age groups, but are now located in the adult section. It also increases the opportunity for them to encounter materials that are not age appropriate for teens, that are intended for adults. Also, when considering children, there's a wide range of developmental stages about what is appropriate. As the previous speaker talked about, there's a vast difference between what is appropriate for a 10-year-old and what is appropriate for, say, a 16 or 17-year-old. Implementing would also create a burden of time and finances, neither of which my library has. I echo the concerns about this eroding local control and parental rights, and would echo the sentiments that the challenge process we have in place works. I have been the director at Natrona County for just shy of 10 years. And during that time, we have had a handful, I think 6 challenges to our collection. Some of those resulted in items being moved to a different location in the library, and some did not because the placement followed our adopted policies. And I was also unaware of the amendment that you are considering. The opt-out amendment for county commissioners is certainly a step in the right direction for local control. However, in public libraries, I believe that power or that authority would better be placed with the Library Board of Trustees, who are appointed by their county commissions to oversee library. And as to the question about the American Library Association, they do not select books for libraries, period. They do not select books for libraries. We add about 9,000 items annually to the library in Natrona County. There's some wiggle room there. That's a lot of books. That's why we have had for decades and decades the opportunity for the request for reconsiderations. That allows our community to have the involvement to let us know if we've got something wrong. So as a mom, as a grandmother, as a wife, and as a Christian, I encourage you to vote no. And I stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions, committee? All right, and just for the public, I know we've actually opened up a second room, PMR5, so just down the hall to room number 5. If you don't want to stand and you want to sit, you're welcome to go to room number 5, and this is being streamed in there so you can watch the entire proceedings. But if you want to stand, I'm perfectly okay with that, as long as you don't block the doors in case somebody wants to move about. Just make sure you're cognizant of that, that's all. So with that, time is up, but I will allow Ms. Hinkle a couple of, if you please just keep your comments concise. I'll give you a couple of minutes just because you're there.
Thank you, Chairman Olson. Thank you. My name is Dr. Renee Hinkle. I'm a physician here in town for many years. I'm also on the school board for Laramie County School District #1. I'm against this bill for multiple reasons. Number one, we have found through our experience with our current sexually explicit book policy in our schools that the definition of sexually explicit is quite subjective, and one person's idea of what it is and another person's are quite different. And that's where most of the problems arise. This is a book ban for schools. I agree that the bill does say you can move young adult books to the adult section if they're considered sexually explicit, but it does say that books will be removed from the schools if they are considered sexually explicit. And so it is a book ban. We worked very hard for over a year to create a appropriate sexually explicit book policy with Laramie County School District number 1. And I was not for that particular policy, but it is currently working. And as Mr. Powers did state, we had over 70% of our parents opt into allowing their children to be able to read any book. This particular policy takes away that parental right. That takes away the parental rights of somebody who does not agree with somebody else's idea of sexually explicit. So, with parental choice comes parental responsibility. And so in public libraries, a parent should be responsible for policing what their children are reading if that is important to them. And this does take away parental rights. And as a school board trustee, it takes away local control. This takes away local control from the county commissioners. This takes away local control from the Laramie County, from the school board trustees. One of the things I like about the Republican platform is that it does decrease government and increase local control, and this takes that away. So I think it goes against typical Republican policies. So poor definition, book ban. And I agree with Mr. Powers completely that this does not take into account the difference between a 5-year-old and a 17-year-old. There are physiological differences. They go through puberty in that time. Teenagers are thinking about sex. I'm sorry that surprises anybody, but they are. And there are things that are not necessarily taught in schools that they need to be able to educate themselves on. And if those things are not available in the library for many people, they're not available at all. And I'd rather them come to the library and get the information than go online.
Any questions for Dr. Hinkle? All right, thank you. So with that, I will close the testimony against this legislation, House Bill 10, and will now take public comment for anybody wishing to speak in favor of House Bill 10. Just come on up and fill up the chairs. Again, just remember that there are others who wish to testify too. So I'm just giving you the latitude, but be cognizant of your time for the sake of others as well. We'll start over here on my right.
Thank you, Chairman Olson. Members of the committee, my name is Patricia McCoy, and I am here representing multiple chapters of Moms for Liberty throughout the state of Wyoming. I am here today in strong support of House Bill 10. House Bill 10 establishes uniform statewide requirements governing how sexually explicit materials are defined, cataloged, and accessed in both county and school libraries. The bill provides clear statutory definitions, requires that sexually explicit materials not be accessible in children's sections, and directs that such materials be cataloged and stored in areas intended for adults. It also requires each library and school district to implement a transparent, accessible challenge process with defined timelines and accountability measures. It is working in Laramie County. This legislation does not rely on vague standards or subjective interpretation. It provides a specific definition of sexually explicit material in statute and applies it consistently. It also ensures that when a violation occurs, there is a structured process for review and, if necessary, legal accountability. Public institutions operate best when expectations are clear and enforcement mechanisms are defined. Wyoming has always recognized that minors require age-based safeguards. We regulate driving privileges, we restrict access to alcohol and tobacco, we require age verification for explicit commercial material. These policies are not controversial. They acknowledge developmental differences and the responsibility adults have to exercise reasonable care. House Bill 10 applies that same standard within publicly funded libraries. Libraries remain important community resources. Parents should be able to trust that children's sections are intentionally curated for youth. Clear cataloging and placement standards protect that trust without limiting adult access to those materials. This bill provides consistency across counties and school districts. It requires transparency in handling concerns, and it ensures that standards governing access by minors are applied evenly through the state. Protecting childhood requires adults to exercise sound judgment and acknowledge that children and adults are not the same. Parents deserve transparency, communities deserve clarity, and minors deserve age-appropriate environments. And House Bill 10 supports all three of these. I would respectfully urge and request all of you to support House Bill 10 without the proposed amendment on the county commissioners. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. McCoy? Thank you. Next, Mr. Wilson.
Chairman,
Green means go.
green means go. Mr. Chairman and committee, I'm Bob Wilson, resident of Laramie County and a proud grandfather. First, I echo the excellent insights of the representative who spoke first today about developmentally inappropriate sexually explicit content. I've personally visited our county library here and verified that several books remain on the shelves of the teen and young adult section. That is not in doubt. Second, I oppose the concept of the county commissioner opt-out provision. I haven't read it, but this is about the mental, behavioral, and social health of the children. It is not about political philosophies. The health of the children is most important, and this bill does a fine job of protecting minors under 18 years of old by preventing them from inadvertent exposure to developmentally inappropriate materials. There's tons of social information out there on the website on the internet that describes precisely how this harms children. Third, in regard to the challenge policy, the challenge policy is improving in various areas, including in the school district, including in the county library system. However, too often it has failed us. I recall an incident several years ago where a young airman advocating for the removal of an age-inappropriate book or a book that he felt was inappropriate brought that to the local school district. Some of you may have seen it subsequently next day on the front page of the paper. I spoke to that young airman later that for bringing this challenge, he was wondering whether he would get a promotion. This is not a good situation. The activism that has come at folks that raise concerns, the attacking lawsuits that we have seen they're a problem. This is something that is best done at the state level. The state can pass a statute, the state can use its legal resources to define in very general terms, which this bill describes as far as the legal procedures. The state can go about ensuring that a broad bill, a broad statute is in place that then individual libraries, individual schools can tailor to their specific size, which areas they are dividing up into different sections for different age groups, leave them liberty to do that. The assertion that the definitions in this statute are overly broad or subjective, I find false. I could read it aloud. They're very graphic. You've all read them, so I won't read them aloud here in the interest of time. They're very graphic. The Section 18-7-107 explicitly defines sexually explicit materials. A plain reading of the statutory definitions and comparing those definitions to the biblical citation just given, the mention of an organ or to state that rape occurred or that a sexual encounter occurred is not covered, is not prohibited by this or defined in which section it should go into. My quick look at the library, and I have not gone in to see if there's a King James Bible in the shelves of the teen young adult section. whether it is or is not, I don't see that as a problem that would be forced to be put out of there under these clear definitions in this section. Let's see. It takes a state law to give even well-intentioned curators the protection that they need against the legal and social attacks that those who are seeking to reform where things are put, the ability to do their jobs. We saw what happened in Northeast Wyoming by a county seeking the community of that county seeking to reform their library. My understanding is, and I have not checked in the last couple days, but the lawsuits went on then. They continue to go on now. If we kick this kick the can down the road, now you've got 23 counties that we need to worry about facing lawsuits. Now we have many more school districts that need to worry about facing lawsuits. Locally, attending county library boards, a meeting here in Cheyenne, I observed the chairman of our current school board state that he felt like defining what is sexually explicit is over his pay grade. Words to that effect. These are topics that sex and health education specialists can check out, or their parents can check out, and that health professionals can check out or buy if they see them as so useful for their therapy or for their parental guidance. Those books are still available from the county library. No one is suggesting that we throw them away, that we shred them. But these very graphic descriptions of behaviors are the sorts of things that ought to be guided. If a behavioral specialist wishes to guide somebody through this material, it should be done by somebody responsible, not just open it up to kids to surf without parental or specialist guidance.
Mr. Wilson, I want to ask you a question about about a statement you just made, because I think it's really important. We're talking about the county libraries. And if a book or material is deemed sexually explicit, then it's simply moved to the adult section. And is there anything that prohibits parents from going to the library and checking out that book for their child if they believe they should have access to it?
Mr. Chairman, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Wilson? All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Olson, members of the committee. My name is Steve Amelia, resident here in Cheyenne. I stand in, what's the word I want to use here? I was going to say opposition, but no, it's support. Yeah,
You'd be in the wrong category if you.
Yeah, that's right.
You would have snuck in.
Okay, so.
Go ahead, Mr. Amelia.
Yeah, thank you. I stand in support of this particular bill. My background is in 30 years of public health. I was trained by Planned Parenthood, AIDS Foundation of Houston, Centers for Disease Control, have a master's in public health. I was a disease investigator for a number of years for the Wyoming Department of Health, and I dealt with sexuality a lot. In Houston, I gave hundreds of presentations to thousands of junior high and senior high students. And I agree with some of the opposition in that sex education is highly important. They've got to know about sexuality, otherwise none of us would be here, because that's how we procreate, can keep our species going. But when you educate kids in sexual education, there has to be a particular context. And one of the books that Representative Lucas had brought up, if I remember it, Let's Talk About It. And one of the librarians said they would not want a book in there that had incorrect information. There's a line in there that says that if you get a sexually transmitted disease, it's no biggie. Getting a sexually transmitted disease is a major problem. It can cause pelvic inflammatory disease. In girls, it can cause scarring. It can cause ectopic pregnancies, etc. And only about 50% of the people have symptoms of that. So that's an incorrect piece of information there. As I talk to kids in Houston and somewhat up in here in Wyoming, kids are definitely interested in sex. And I would agree, they need to be interested in sex, just like they need to be interested in driving and everything else. You have to do it responsibly. And their interest in sexuality is how to handle it properly. Now, one of the books that Ms. Lucas had brought up, there is a drawing. It's a very good drawing, very good artist. Two naked boys, one standing and the other is kneeling at the other kid's waist. You can imagine what the kneeling boy is doing. That is sexually explicit. That is something that kids do not need to know. As she said, you cannot unsee something that you've seen. I also saw and read in one of the books about he deeply thrust inside me, etc. And it goes on. I know when I was a kid, I saw those pictures and I read that stuff. And I'm going, yep, it has an effect on boys, it has an effect on kids, etc. And so we need to give sexual education in a proper context. Virtue would be realized, self-control would be good, sexual respect would be good, and our bodies are not toys. Sexuality is not a recreational sport or something. And I find that when I was trained by Planned Parenthood and AIDS Foundation of Houston, that there's a lot of adults out there that are exceedingly sexually irresponsible. How many porn sites do we have? How many Bonnie Blues do we have? How many guys went to do engage with Bonnie Blue? What about all of these sex magazines out there? What about the Epstein files? What about sex trafficking all over the world? How much does adults get into trouble because of sexuality? This type of mentality, and that's the main thing, the mentality comes down, filters down to some of these books that the kids read. And we need to make sure that they understand sexuality properly and not in a context where it's just fun. Let's go have pizza, let's go bowling, let's have sex, let's go back and watch some movies. It's got to be respectfully. You don't teach driving. You can go 100 miles an hour down Dale Range. You can drive over other people's property, etc. No, you have to do driving properly. You have to do sex properly. And sex education, as I mentioned, and as some of the opposition has mentioned, is important. We need to do it in a proper context. And they say we must trust the parents, but they also said that there are parents that are abusing their kids. And I'm going, yeah, that's a problem. And those parents are adults. And I read in the newspaper, in the Cowboy State Daily, all the time about adults doing horrible things to their kids and whatnot. So when we have teachers out there, and there's a lot of good teachers, because I met them in Houston and up here in Wyoming, that we need to teach the students properly about sexually transmitted diseases, sexual relationships, and proper relationships to other people and themselves. So I would stand for questions. Hopefully I covered everything. Oh, there is no book banning. You can buy all these things on Amazon, you know. And I had mentioned one time in a letter to the editor, well, why don't we have Playboy, Penthouse, and Hannah and Hustler? And somebody says, oh, you can't have that. Well, if you don't have it in the library, that's censorship. Because there's a lot of people that want to have those particular magazines. But when it comes to these types of books, that's taxpayer-funded money. All right. So if parents want them, they can buy them themselves. People want Playboy, et cetera, they can buy them themselves. There should be no taxpayer money in there. I stand for questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Milia? All right, thank you. Mr. Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Committee. My name is Nathan Winters. I'm the president of the Wyoming Family Alliance. And I've been following closely the work that you've done through the interim. Those generally been colleagues of mine from Wyoming Family Alliance who have been in the committee with you. I want to commend the work of the committee and the labor that you've gone through to address these issues. I feel that you have specifically addressed the issue that has been brought to you, and just in a few ways, and I'll keep my remarks short. You've done a great job in narrowly defining what is sexually explicit in this language. I'm sure the work was frustrating in that the terminology is extraordinarily explicit, but that's so that the bill does not just encompass any unclothed form such as those from ancient civilizations. I believe it's proof that you're not interested in book banning You're just ensuring that material is age appropriate, and I think you've done a good job. Secondly, I believe you've done a good job in setting up a system that allows for local citizens to address the issues in their local county without first running to the courts. It builds out a system that ensures that the local community will be heard by the local library, but not through frivolous lawsuits. I also believe that it's fitting and proper to handle this at the state legislative level so that every child is protected. This level is the level that is closest to the people. Also, when we talk about if it were a worst case scenario, if a mom or dad runs into an issue where the local library is continuing to place explicit books into the hands of their kids, they have to proceed through a multi-step process you've put together in this bill. And then and only if they prevail in court would that person receive reasonable attorney fees. And so you've done a good job, I think, in balancing that. And let me add that a person who's gone through trauma, it should be said this, and has specific counseling needs, they've suffered a tragedy that should grieve every one of us. There's no doubt. The issue is that the discussion that the traumatized child needs would actually traumatize those who have not gone through those circumstances. In my pastoral training, as a trained counselor, I can tell you that there are times it would be highly inappropriate to bring up certain things in certain circumstances. Some have argued that parents should determine how their kids learn about sex, and that is true. It is a family issue. The chairman has brought this up. They don't have the right to place those materials in the hands of another family's kids. A public library is a public space, and it's important to protect all families who visit. So hypothetically, a person who believes that their kids need these materials, that parent still has the ability to check them out. And lastly, I believe in the final analysis, this bill has been carefully crafted. It's actually very narrowly tailored. I would be concerned, though, about, and I understand the question at hand, whether or not a county commission should have the opportunity to incorporate this legislation. I believe that the issue rises to a higher level than that, and it should be addressed. And if it's just an opt-in or opt-out policy, it could easily be avoided. And this is an issue that, to protect families, should not be avoided. And so I think it would be, I wouldn't be for that amendment, but I am in favor of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Mr. Winters? Senator Hicks, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Winters, you talked about something that's come up associated with, numbers of people and stuff. And I just wondering if you'd care to opine on the topic of the majority having the right to trample on the rights of the minority.
Mr. Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Hicks. I appreciate the question. When we talk about the majority trampling on the rights of the minority, that is something that has been carefully safeguarded in our country. And as we celebrate the 250th anniversary, we have to be just as conscious now of protecting the rights of all. The question that I've brought up repeatedly, though, is that when the minority insists that they have the right to put something that the majority would not like to have in the hands of their kids, and especially in a public space, that's an inappropriate understanding of that reality as an American.
Mr. Winters, in a former life, you were a pastor.
That's right.
Can you address the religious text issue with this legislation, or whether there is an issue at all?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. I have heard that reference to Ezekiel several times, and there's a couple things I would just say about that. First of all, there's not one instance in the reading of that text that would violate this particular piece of legislation, number one. Number two, that is also not presented as a positive circumstance. I still, Mr. Chairman, last night was in studies. I'm in my second semester now. Actually, it's my fourth semester of Greek. I'm still a pastor. It's just not my full-time vocational calling anymore. I'm a lay pastor. I spend lots of time in that text, and there's not one thing that they have brought up. They're kind of, people do use it as a pretext, but really it doesn't, I don't think it fits at all with this legislation.
Senator Crago?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you concerned, regardless of your interpretation of the text, that other people may interpret it differently and bring challenges under this statute in all of our libraries? Because that's one of my concerns.
Yeah.
Mr. Winters.
Mr. Chairman and Senator, I do appreciate that. I know that in one of the state, there was a brief instance where essentially they did try to remove the scriptures from a library based on that very text. On the other hand, I do not believe that that has withstood scrutiny. And so I also think, Mr. Chairman and Senator, what you have specifically written here, there is so much detail involved, specifically on pages 2 and 3, that I just don't see that being incorporated, not in this bill. So if there are other iterations of the bills in other states, I don't know about that, but this is pretty carefully defined.
Senator Crago.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Remember, we have a lawsuit hanging over our head, right? So you get a challenge. Maybe it's gray. Maybe it doesn't fit exactly in there, but we have a lawsuit hanging over our head. What do you think the public libraries or the school libraries, because that's what I'm really focusing on right at this moment, because in the public library, we can move the books. And although the school library, we have an amendment in here that came over from the other house. It says that it can be housed somewhere where only 18-year-olds can access it. I'm not sure what that means. It's not as well defined as it is in the public library portion of the bill, but we have a lawsuit hanging over our heads. What do you think that will force our libraries to do? And let's just focus on the Bible. Do you think they will stand there and fight? Do you think they'll say, we're going to try to avoid lawsuits at all costs? Because all that costs money. Because if they say no, they are going to get sued. Whether we're right or we're wrong, whether you and I are right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. They're going to get sued, and that's going to cost a lot of money. And there's nothing in this bill that provides money to our schools or our public libraries to defend all these lawsuits that will be coming. So what are your thoughts on that? How do we fix that? How do we protect our libraries if they go to bat for us and say, no, the Bible doesn't fit this? What do we do with that?
Mr. Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator. I appreciate the fact that many people use the threat of lawsuits to keep good legislation down. And one of the things that we're faced with right now is the systematic sexualization of our children on the one hand, and then the threat that we're going to lose the opportunity to have the Bible, which I don't believe fits on pages 2 and 3. So just through the mere threat of a lawsuit. And the threats of those who want to sexualize our children, I think that we should very carefully stand up for those who put us into office and say, no, not here, because we do care about our kids and do not want them to be sexualized, even through the threats that might be brought.
Follow up? Mr. Chairman.
Senator Crago.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Winters, that really didn't answer my question. And I mean, I don't disagree with what you just said. My question is more focused on the actual procedure. What do we do about that within the bill? How do we protect our libraries from defending lots and lots of lawsuits? Because even though you and I may agree whether or not the Bible fits within definitions on page 2 and 3, how do we fund our local government entities, whether it be schools or counties, to defend all of the lawsuits that are likely to come? How do we do that? Because there are people who are probably have different ideology than you and I about the Bible.
Right.
Not everybody agrees with you and I on that. So what's that look like? I mean, that's one of my big concerns is we're setting people up, not necessarily for the books we're trying to ban, probably for a lot of the books we're trying to protect. And so what's that look like?
Mr. Winters.
Mr. Chairman, if I could again commend the crafting of your bill, because you set up a multi-step process, first with the county library and then with the school board, so that there is a process, first of all, where they go to the board of directors, and then there's an established form, and then the challenge goes through a review process, and then, and only then, does one actually proceed to a legal case. And even then, an issue, the person that brings that does not actually receive any funds unless they prevail. So the same happens with both. I would think that the process that you set up actually is fairly effective, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Crago.
Follow up. I'm picking on you because you're one of the smartest people I know. I'm gonna ask this a different way. Would
Sure.
you support the state providing funding back home to our counties and our school districts to actually fight these lawsuits that are likely to come?
Mr. Winters.
Mr. Chairman, in a circumstances such as this, it would be very important, I believe, for the state to support families from having their children sexualized in a government institution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Craigo. Thank you, Mr. Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that, we will close public comment. I apologize to those online who may have tuned in, wishing to speak. We had a set amount of time. It's just always been my standard practice to afford in-person testimony a preference because people have traveled here to be here in person. I think that means a lot to the public process. So I'm sorry that I didn't get to online testimony, but there's plenty of testimony in the room, I'm sure, that still wishes to speak, and we're not getting to them either. So just so everyone is clear on that, I will close public testimony. And committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Okay, it's been moved by Senator Kolb. And seconded by Senator Hicks. Part of your conversation that you were having, Senator Craigo, before we get to your amendment, I think that there's a worthy amendment on page 9 to the attorney's fees. Oh, and page 6. So on pages 6, yes, I think it's the exact, let me just see if it's the exact same language. I think it is.
It is.
It is. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move on page 6, line 15, changing the word shall to may. On line 16, striking a person, insert the word the. Following the word prevailing, insert the word party.
Okay.
And so it would read, the court may award reasonable attorney fees and costs to the prevailing party in an action brought under this subsection.
Okay, and obviously that same amendment would be made on page
9.
9.
Yes, sir.
On page 9. Pierre's got it. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Kolb. We witnessed the discussion of this provision, but is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. That amendment has been adopted. Are there other amendments to this bill? Senator Craigo.
Mr. Chairman, so, and this, I guess, is in response to the sort of the comment brought by the county attorney's office regarding resident or resides within. And I thought we could use the language that's in statute already, which would be qualified elector. So that actually has a definition. So on page 9, on line 2, we would strike beginning with person through the word boundaries on line 3 and just replace that with any qualified elector of the school district. And then the same would apply, Mr. Chairman, on page 6, line 4, and we would just strike the word resident and put any qualified elector of the county. And that way, someone just passing through the county would not be able to bring the suit. You'd have to actually be a resident of the county or the school district. So I would make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Been moved by Senator Craigo and seconded by Senator Crum. What is the definition of qualified elector?
I don't know the exact language, Mr. Chairman, but I can look it up for the vote. It has to do with voting, yes. But
So it would be restricted to anyone over the age of 18.
Correct.
That resides in the school district, just looking at page 9. And that is a qualified voter?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think you have to be a registered voter to be a qualified elector, but I can get you the exact definition. It's the language we use when we're making appointments to boards and other things within the county. And so it has a very specific definition. Essentially, it's someone who resides within the county rather than using the word resident, which, as the county attorneys pointed out, could be someone just passing through.
Yeah.
And so, I guess it would be a placeholder if we can come up with something better, but I think it does eliminate some of their concerns about who does this actually apply to? And we won't have folks coming in from out of state to park a camper in our county for a couple days and just to cause issues. This actually would have to be a parent or someone who lives in the county, which I would support that.
Okay. So yeah, before we get to if this bill moves forward, we'll have time to look at that before it gets to the floor, but I agree with your analysis. Is there any additional discussion, Senator Cole? No, on this amendment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, that amendment has been adopted. Any other amendments?
Well, I'm on a roll, Mr. Chairman. So I will move the amendment that I have had handed out to everyone. And I'll just read it so the public can hear it. It would be on page 6, after line 2, we would insert a new paragraph E. Any Board of County Commissioners may opt out of the requirements of this section, comma, on behalf of the County Library Board, comma, upon an affirmative vote of a majority of the members of the Board of County Commissioners, period. Upon opting out under this subsection, comma, a county library board shall not be subject to a lawsuit under subsection F of this subsection. And then we would, on page 6, line 4, delete subparagraph E and replace it with subparagraph F. I would make that motion. Section. I apologize. Sorry, Pierre.
It's been moved by Senator Craigo and seconded by Senator Crum. Discussion, Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so everyone knows why I'm doing this. This particular issue is not a problem in my county. We heard about the county's libraries earlier today that have some of the books. One of the books in particular, my particular library board, this is not a problem. It's not a problem in our community. I've listened to them. I've talked to them. We've walked around the library. I understand they have a policy in place already. If there's a way for them to continue to do their job without fear of lawsuits, I want to try to give that to them. I understand there are communities where this is important and it is an issue. Those communities can still deal with that through this amendment. But those counties where the county commissioners, who, by the way, are elected folks and do answer to the people, and they're the people who then appoint the library board. In those communities where it is important and this is an issue, and we saw which ones they are, we can read them out again. Those folks can have a conversation with their county commissioners. But where it's not an issue, those county commissioners also can have a conversation with their folks back home and decide to go a different direction. This does not apply to the schools. I understand there's conversation about that. There is a difference between school libraries and county libraries, and I do admit that. I'm not a huge proponent of this bill anyways, as you all know, those of you that have followed our work over the interim. But this does create a line where we can separate out the county libraries, the public libraries versus the school libraries. I'm not touching the school libraries with this amendment, only the county libraries. And so there would not be an opt-out provision for the schools. And that's my explanation. Just want to give some more local control to the folks back home in communities like mine where this is not a problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Crum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate our good senator up there from the hole in the wall bringing this amendment. I like that senator. I've visited my public library both with a tour and then without a tour to see what's going on in that library, as well as the school libraries and well as the great library at our great university. And I have not found a problem. And I found that all of them have a review board already set up to look at what material is in those libraries. And I really don't see a problem in my community. However, I do recognize that there may be problems in other communities. And so I strongly support Senator Craigo's amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion on this amendment?
Question.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, that amendment has been adopted. Any other amendments to this bill? Any discussion on this bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kolb and then Senator Crum.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to add a few things. I don't consider this a ban. It's maybe a relocation. I would call it more than that. More importantly, it isn't about race, color, or creed. I'm offended by anybody who would then associate that with this topic. This is merely about age appropriateness for a book. And it's been clear testimony, there's a difference between a very young person and a 17-year-old. They're not the same. That's where I lie with this. I'm in support of this bill. I would be an aye vote for this, and watch it through the process and see how it moves forward, but it's needed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Crum.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize if I missed part of this earlier. I was at another committee. I apologize. But, you know, one thing I want to make sure that we understand is, you know, we talk about rights and responsibilities, but a lot of times here we're forgetting about the duties that go along with those rights. And part of that duty is of the parent, to make sure what the, you know, child is seeing. And, you know, we can write all the laws we want in the world, but it really comes down to the duty of the parent of what their child is or is not seeing. There's many other devices that children can see, things that maybe they shouldn't see other than a library book. So I'm the first one to say that we shouldn't have pornography in public libraries. But I think a lot of it gets down to the basics of what is the duty of the parents to their children. And with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Crum. Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to applaud everybody that's shown up and helped us work this bill. Both sides. I mean, I think there are good reasons for the bill. There's good reasons against the bill, and it's really a tough decision for a lot of us. I mean, this is important to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and I just wanted to say thank you. We've worked this through the interim. I will be a no vote for many of the reasons I've already discussed, but I understand why there will be people who vote aye for this, and I also respect that. But I appreciate everybody showing up, coming to the room, and giving us your help to make these hard decisions. Thank you.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, and I couldn't agree more with my colleague from Albany County, and I firmly believe there's a parental obligation. But when we have a situation, and I think there's been testimony, and there may be 600 to 900 books a year come into the library, is the duty now to say that parent every single time that a new book shows up has to go on here. And I think that's an undue burden that we would put on there. And so again, we're trying to put sideboard. I agree it's a parental responsibility, but at what level do we say there's also a governmental responsibility that they don't have to go through the library every time a new book shows up? So it's a balancing act is what we're trying to accomplish here. And again, that's the challenge that we have in the legislature, is try to find the balance.
Pierre, will you please do a roll call vote on House Bill 10, sexually explicit materials and libraries requirements?
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 10 as amended. Senator Craigo.
No.
Senator Crum.
No.
Senator Hicks.
Aye.
Senator Kolb.
Aye.
Chairman Olson.
Aye.
3 ayes, 2 noes.
All right, thank you. With that, we are adjourned.